Good afternoon, you guys.
Good afternoon.
Welcome back to Spillin' It.
Yes.
We have our mom. She is everyone's mom.
I'm everyone's mom.
Honestly, people used to say that you were their mom, and I was like,
It would bother me so bad.
my mom.
Yeah.
That's true.
But we've had mom on the podcast before, and you guys loved that podcast
Yes,
so
they
much.
did.
And me and you, we kind of just we were just talking about it. And there wasn't really like a full circle moment. And so I kind of wanted to have Ethan here with us so that he can keep us on track for one.
Thank you, Ethan.
We deviate a lot.
Do my best.
Yeah. And so we're going to have her again and share her whole story again.
Yes.
You ready?
I'm ready.
You ready? Okay. So I wanted to kind of start with research on substance abuse when you're younger and parents who have substance abuse problems and the likelihood of you doing drugs because your parents do drugs and all the things. So research indicates that in any given year between 2015 and 2019, more than 21 million children in the United States lived with a parent who misused substance, and more than 2 million children lived with a parent who had a substance use disorder.
Wow.
Research also indicates that if you were physically or sexually abused, studies show that physical or sexual abuse with a parent of a substance use disorder is 3 times more likely to physically or sexually abuse their child.
Wow.
Additionally, one study found that alcohol misuse was more significantly related to child physical abuse than drug abuse.
Wow.
You know, those angry drunks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That also includes emotional and
Physiological.
trauma. Thank you. And neglect. One study found that children who experience abuse have a 4 times higher likelihood of developing a substance use disorder as well.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
So
They're staggering statistics.
in 2015 to 2019, 21 million children live with a parent who misuses substance.
Wow.
That's so much. So with that being said, we're going to go into mom's story, which has a lot to do with drugs, alcohol, abuse, all the things.
Growing up in it. Yeah.
Okay, so with that being said, we will kind of start with the beginning of your story and grandma and grandpa from the beginning, I guess.
Got
from
it.
the very, very beginning.
From the very beginning.
You're the middle.
I am a middle. I have had a brother. Yep, middle's a rock. Whoop, whoop. So my brother was 2 years older than I, and my younger sister was 2 at the time when there was a divorce. So I was 9. My brother Randy would have been 11.
Okay.
Yep. So that was kind of where it all started, and then
you have memories before that of just fighting of your mom and dad.
Yep. There was just a lot of infidelity and things between them that they were fighting about, where as kids, you don't know what's really happening. So you just go out and play and kind of stay out of their way, right?
Yeah.
And do your own thing.
So you don't feel like nothing significantly happened before the age of 9?
No.
Okay.
Just
divorce.
a lot of, divorce.
Yeah, that's significant.
Fighting and divorce.
Okay.
Fighting and divorce at 9. And then from that point, then really from 9 to 11, had lived with my mom, with Randy and my sister, and then
So all 3 of you.
all 3 of us. Yep. And she was a single mom.
And did they divorce because of infidelity, right?
Yes.
That
there was
the nail in the coffin.
Yes. There was a lot of infidelity. My dad owned a gas station, so he had a lot of different women on the side that would come in, and there was a lot of pornography as well that I remember I just remember the magazines because I was like, what's this? And I was like, what is happening here?
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of traumatizing as a little girl to see some of that stuff and be like, is that what I'm supposed to look like?
Yeah.
You know, so that it kind of sows a seed in your brain as a little child and not understanding it all and being like, okay, this is weird.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was the thing that my mom was like, that's it. We were getting a divorce. She tried counseling, different things. It just didn't work out. So they divorced.
And one of the women he divorced, or one of the women he had an affair with, he
ended up marrying.
Getting married to her, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So in a matter of 3 years from the divorce, they both got remarried.
Yep.
And both of them married people that were almost worse because it was it's like if you would have stayed together and really worked it through, but then you bring along so much other we all bring baggage into marriages.
Yep.
Yes.
We all do. And so they had baggage, obviously, that needed to be worked out. Then they chose to split. They brought that baggage into the next marriage, which it just got worse because, then they married. My mom married into with a man that had a lot of anger issues and different stuff. And then my dad married the gal that one of the affairs he was in.
Yeah.
So, so for those 3 years, she was a single mom and it was very hard. Obviously, she didn't, it was government stuff and government cheese. And we would go to Goodwill and it was, this is what you get. And, understandably so, she didn't have that income.
Right.
And then, so that was for about 3 years. And then, yes, they both got remarried. And then I found myself in this whole new thing of now I have 4 adults.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that, bounced around between them all, as well as my dad would pick us up on Sundays. Well, then he started bringing his new wife. So he would bring Kathy, my stepmom at that time, and we would go on Sundays, and it was traumatic. It really was, because she was just very angry and she didn't like us, obviously, as kids, because she wanted that relationship with my dad.
Yeah.
And so then
You
to
can
pick
tell,
up.
yeah, she was very possessive of
Possessive
him.
is a good word.
Yeah. I remember from my point of view, if this gives you any picture, I was very young when I met her, like the first time, I think. But I just remember dark, like just a dark cloud. Just
aura.
Yeah. That's all I remember.
That's interesting that's what your takeaway was as a little child.
She scared me.
Yeah. She was scary.
Courtney was intuitive from a very young age.
Yes.
I don't get scared by people much. Like I'm not, but she was scary.
Yeah.
She was scary.
Yeah.
So,
and little did I know as a young child that she had schizophrenia. I didn't know that as a child. I'm not going to go up to you and say, yeah, so-and-so has schizophrenia.
Right.
I wouldn't have even known what that meant.
Yeah.
and she knew, or was that later known?
It was labeled. She was in for counseling for that. She had a lot of medications. But on top of that, she smoked pot, took barbiturates, drank. So on top of the schizophrenia medication, she's adding other substances.
That shouldn't be combined.
Correct. And so, I mean, it was like 1 minute it was up, next minute it was down. I was always like, and my thing to kind of please her in the middle was to be helpful. Like I could see in her eyes, like her eyes were starting to change and she was going to blow a gourd. And I was like, would you like a cup of coffee? Should I, it was like, should I clean? Should I do, what can I do to calm the hurricane? I knew that was coming, which never worked. It just never did.
Was that immediate from the moment you met her that you felt like that?
Immediate.
And so you were around like 12?
11.
11?
Mhm.
Okay. And then when did you decide you're like, I'm going to move in with dad and not be with mom anymore? Because there was a time where you were like, you and Uncle Randy were like, nope,
Yep.
we're going to live with dad.
Yeah. So I moved in with him when I was 11, actually. So the divorce happened 9. I lived with my mom.
And then you kind of bounced.
Yeah, bounced back and forth. He'd pick us up. She was there. And there was trauma on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
So no matter which route, but my brother ended up going to live with him. And so then I was like, he was kind of my safety net, and we were 2 years apart. So I was like, I have to go too because he went.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I made the decision, like, I want to go live with my dad because, there was stress with my mom and her new husband. So I was like,
Randy was closer in age to you than
yes.
Robin.
Yes, we're 2 years apart. Robin was 7 years younger. Okay. So she was like the baby. I didn't really know her. I didn't do much with her.
Yeah.
Because she was like the baby, and my mom pretty much
basically didn't have a choice. Like, she's staying with me.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay. And so then when you moved at 11 to be with your dad, that's when all of everything started.
Yes. That's when it was like, I did not know I was walking into a hellhole.
Yeah.
I just thought, well, it'll be better there.
Yeah.
Well, what's better?
I think too, like, to set the scene a little bit, it was like almost at your mom's was a very structured, like, you're going to church, you're doing this, you're doing that. Yeah. And it's like, when you're like 11, you're like, I'm going to go to dad's. He lets me do literally whatever I want.
Right.
He didn't have like rules, right?
Right.
So you could do whatever.
Right.
Which sounds appealing when you're 11, but.
Right.
Yes. But not helpful.
No.
Because we would go on Sundays, and it was like he was a sugar daddy, it was like, we're going to the movies, and then we're going here, and then we're going there,
Yep.
But that's not reality.
Mm-hmm.
And when I would go back to mom's, and it was like, back to this structure, and that was all new too, because we hadn't grown up with church, and then she became a Jehovah's Witness. Mm-hmm. And so there was just a lot of different structure, and then a new man, and it was like, so either route.
Woman.
Yeah.
Yep.
New man and a new woman. So do you remember the first time, like, she actually abused you? Like, there was like a moment and then it just got worse, or was it just from the beginning?
It was pretty much from the beginning. The first time that we went on a Sunday, and he had picked us up, and she was there, and I was like, oh, like, I had never met her, and she was in the front seat smoking her cigarette, and the windows were up, and so it was like walking into a cloud of smoke.
Yeah.
And then I was in the back. I was just like petrified, because like you, I have that spidey sense, like, there is something really wrong here.
Yep.
And I was in the back, and then she got in a fight with him over something. He must have turned his head, and she thought he was looking at another woman.
Oh.
And so then this big fight broke out. I'm in the back seat, like, crying, like, this is...
Randy was there too?
Yep. This is just mortifying. Like, she is yelling, and I'm stuck in this car. The windows are up. There's smoke. I can't see anything.
Jeez.
And that was the first time she was like, yo, stop crying. I mean, yelling at the top of her lungs, like, yelling at me for crying.
Wow.
And then right there, that was like, I learned, I can't have an emotion here.
Yeah.
And so it was like petrifying in that moment. And I realized things just drastically took a change.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where that continued and continued. And why would I even think then, let's go live with my dad.
Right.
Yeah. Probably Randy was there. Right.
Yeah.
That was, I think, the only reason.
Randy and maybe less structure.
Yeah.
Did you feel like throughout the course of this time with Randy and your dad and stepmom, it was you that got more singled out and abused as opposed to Randy?
Yes.
Or was he as well?
I mean, the boys, so she had 2 younger boys, and then it was Randy. So they were like 7, 8. I was 11. Randy was 13 by that time. So 2 of her youngers, and then us.
You were the only girl.
I was the only girl. And so as the years went on and I've kind of looked back at it, it was like, okay, I was the target.
Yeah.
And as I came to know her story, isn't that part of with abusers, you come to know their story.
Yeah.
And I did have compassion for her because she came from a sexually abusive home. Her
At
stepdad.
the time, though? Did you have that?
Not at the time.
Okay.
No.
So it was like after you were like processed?
Right. After my healing process
Yeah.
and my journey. But as a child, you're just like, you are psycho. Like,
Right.
what is wrong? And she did target me. And I just was like, I had no choice.
Yeah.
Like we're living then in a 2-bedroom apartment. What was that then? 3 boys in 1 bedroom. They were in another bedroom. And I had the hallway, which led from the bedrooms to the kitchen. So that
What
was.
do you mean you had the hallway? Can you expand on that?
That was my bed. So I
bed
had a
was-
pillow and a blanket
In
What?
the hallway.
in the hallway on
my
the
gosh.
floor. So like how you have your hallway where the bedrooms are, I had the floor.
And you had that because you couldn't, they were like, no, you get the hallway.
Yeah. There were, where else was there in a 2-bedroom?
Yeah.
The boys had one, they had one. We weren't allowed to sit on the furniture. So like most people would say, go sleep on the couch.
Yeah.
Weren't
Right.
allowed to sit on the furniture.
No,
Why?
we were. I have no.
Is there plastic on it?
And they put plastic on
We probably
it.
smoked in there, but
Yes,
forbid you
yes.
to sit on it.
Completely
Yes.
penetrated by cigarette smoke, but
Oh yes,
we don't want kids sitting
yes.
on it.
Kids
Oh my
cannot
gosh.
sit on it.
Wow.
Only the adults sat on the furniture. We had to sit on the floor.
Wow.
Even to eat, we had to sit on the floor. They had a round glass table that fit. There were 4 chairs, but only my dad and her could sit there, and her 2 boys, and then my brother and I had to eat our food sitting.
At the floor, like
at the
like
floor.
animals.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like I never thought of it until I was older. Like this is really dysfunctional.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I have a pillow, I have a blanket, but I tried to become the woodwork because unbeknownst to me, she was up every night. So with schizophrenia and with her specific schizophrenia, she was up every night and she had that round table with her makeup mirror and she would talk to herself in this mirror. And so I'm right here, the light is on and I'm like, who is she talking to? I'm like looking like,
Oh my gosh.
what on
Wow.
earth is happening? She'd do it every night and she'd just be like that.
Like just a full on conversation.
Yeah, that mother effer and French here. And I'm like, I had no clue who she was talking to
Yeah.
until I realized later in my healing journey, schizophrenia, she's talking to, I don't know, like with that, they think there's people there that they're talking to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was my evenings. And then when she was in a fight with my dad, that's where the physical abuse started because I was right there in that hallway. He would lock himself in the room because he got so sick of her, slam the door, lock it. Here I am.
The only one on
The only
around.
one. The boys are locked in their bedroom. And so I was, open target. So that's where the abuse really started.
So can you explain or talk about, if you want to, some of the stuff that she would do to you?
Well, this was probably at least 3-4 times a week where they were in all full-blown yelling fight.
Yeah.
Like we got kicked out of apartments like every 3 months because of the violence, the yelling, the smashing of walls.
Mm-hmm.
And so me being in the hallway, she's taking it out on my dad. So she's kicking me, hitting me, punching me. I mean, I'm just kind of like trying to get into the woodwork deeper if
Yeah.
I could, which to this day, I find myself sleeping just like this. And they'll be like, you are in a safe environment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just relax, uncoil
You're
your body
okay.
from the fetal
It's like-
position.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's to this day. So I'm always like, okay, like my hands will be still tight. And I'm like, you're safe. Okay, I'm 61. So it's still body holds the score.
Oh, for
Yeah.
sure.
And so it's like,
Do you ever have dreams like that would still happen? Or like that you're that in that spot again?
no,
flashbacks.
no,
Yeah.
thank goodness.
Oh, good.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank goodness. I was going to say, I mean, I know there can be healing brought to
Yeah.
completely remove
Yeah.
those type of memories from your,
Yeah.
From your brain,
Yeah.
because it's like, but your body, when you go to sleep, that's a different story because you're, you're trying to rest your body, but then you wake up and it's like, oh my gosh, why am I so tense? It's like, okay.
So when she would hit you and stuff, like what would you do? Like you couldn't obviously feel like you could fight back.
No. I mean, I just would obviously cover my head, try to cover myself with a pillow,
Yeah.
then there's ashtrays flying through the air, she's pulling her gun out on me. I'm like,
well,
I'm like petrified, like she is terrorizing me. And I wanted this, obviously, in my mind. I'm like, well, I wanted to live here. I wanted to be with my dad and my brother, thinking I think in my brain, I thought they were going to protect me.
so I was just going to ask.
I was going to ask that too.
Yeah. Was there ever a moment your dad or your brother
No,
stepped in?
there was when, and this was after they had seen her beat the crap out of me so many times. And it was like thinking, why doesn't she do this to the boys?
Yeah.
But when I want to say 13, because by that time I started getting stronger. I started doing drugs probably around 11. My brother introduced me. So he's 2 years older. So 11, 12, 13. He's 13. He's like, here's a joint. I'm like, great. He's my older brother. He's going to help me. Right. Mm-hmm. So, which I did everything he did.
Mm-hmm.
And so, then I started getting into the crowd where they're partying and drinking. And,
Fighting.
yeah, fighting. And by that time, just the anger in me from all of that was just rising up. And I mean,
How could it not?
yeah, how could it not? And that's where I connected with a friend who also had some situations in her household. Mm-hmm. And we were just a pair because we were both two angry youth, and we just were like, we just stuck together like glue.
Us against the world.
Did you ever one of these days I can only imagine the thoughts you have when you're that young and like you're the only one getting beat on.
Yeah.
And everyone's watching it and no one is doing anything. Like it would make me want to lose my mind.
Yeah. And nobody's stepping in. And then by that time there was an incident. We were at another house and Lord knows what was going on. She came into the room, just started, I'm sleeping, but she's pounding, and she wore a ton of rings, just pounding, beating my head. And I woke up. Oh. Yeah. I have no clue what it was about. And so then I wake up, and I mean, I'd been partying the night before, and I just went crazy, just started fighting back. My dad did step into the picture, my brother. And my brother stood in front of my dad, like, you let her beat the crap out of her. And she ran up the stairs. It was like, I mean, it's kind of funny, but not like on the Christmas Story where the little boy, it just goes so crazy because that bully kept bullying him, right?
Yep.
And she was a bully.
And
you snap. I snapped. I could not stop hitting her. And it just felt so good. And it was like, from then on, she kind of stopped. Like, oh my gosh, this girl is getting bigger now, and I can't just beat the crap out of her.
Right.
And, but by that time, I was into drugs more. I was like taking anything. I was going into the bars at 13, 14. Because in Wisconsin, there's so many bars. We'd go into play pool.
Rules are a little looser.
Yes. And so, that just kind of, led up to
drug use?
Yeah, drug use, not going to, I would go to school, but then I would leave. 9th and 10th grade, it was like, I was up all night.
Yeah.
By the time I got on the bus, because I had to get on the bus to go to school, because who wants to be in the house with her?
Right.
So I'm like, I'd rather go to school. I was falling asleep. I was like, nowadays, I think teachers would have caught that.
Right.
Yeah. Did you have bruises on you at all from her? Or was it all like...
It was hidden.
It
Covered
was
up.
more covered.
Yeah. It was like on my head, she would attack me, on my back. So that stuff you don't see.
Right.
Behind you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
And so, but I always thought, like in all these different places that we moved to, like the neighbors,
Right.
like if I was a neighbor, how do you not hear, and you know that there's children there? How do you not report that?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, now as an adult, I'm super sensitive to that. Like even in a grocery store, if I start to hear a parent like going off, I'm like,
Yeah.
like, I mean, it just rises up.
Yeah. Did you ever, when you were younger, be like, I am never having kids or did you never feel like that? Because you were afraid of maybe doing the same or...
As I got older, so probably I would say 14, 15, 16, as I got deeper into the drugs, I was like, I will never get married.
Yeah.
I will never have children. First of all, I hate men
Right.
because they never stood up for me, except there was one silver lining in this was my uncle who lived in New York, my mom's brother. And he knew what was kind of going on.
How
And
did he know? That's what I feel like I maybe have missed that because he was in New York. Right. So grandma knew about all of this too. And so she would tell?
I think...
Or did you tell him?
think she would share. I think I may have. I think he just knew. Like his daughter was... he had an intuition. I think he could read. He could hear my voice. And maybe I did share stuff. I don't recall why he was such an advocate for me, but I now as an adult say, if there is one person that, you know, is for you, it's not like you need a whole group of 20 people to help. One person matters. That one voice, because he would call me weekly. How are you? How are you?
Wow.
I'm like, I don't even remember what I would say to him.
Yeah.
But he would always say to me, if you ever need help, I will help you. I will put you through drug treatment. And he's like, I know you don't have a drug problem. You have a family crisis.
Yeah.
He would say that to me. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess this is a family crisis. Like, this is not, it was so toxic and dysfunctional. But as a kid, I didn't have a choice.
Right.
I couldn't be, it was like, well, it was either here or there. And it did get to that point that stuck in my brain. And it just kind of progressed. You know, I'm not going to school. I'm getting into trouble. They put me in foster homes.
Wow.
That didn't work. I ran away, obviously, how many times from home?
So Grandpa and Randy never said anything ever.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was probably where my anger towards men was like.
Well, first of all, you can't trust because your dad has cheated on your mom multiple times.
Yep.
Right.
Has magazines and like whatever. And then when you get in this situation, you would think the one person that like has your back is your dad.
Right.
And
as a little girl. Yeah.
Yeah. And that would, if it's really hard to trust. I mean, so many people have dad issues and that leads to so many different situations.
Yeah.
And then you have your brother where you're like, I would stand up for you.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
So that would be really hard.
Yeah.
I would never trust men again either.
Yeah. It's kind of like, and then being married years later and then watching Dave with you girls, I was like, this is how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I mean, that would bring me to tears just watching him parent you girls, because it's like, yes, or Ethan with Nevaeh, Matt with his girls. It's like, oh my gosh, that's healing just watching.
Yeah.
Just watching it. And but I knew that in their spirits, they were so weak too.
Yeah.
And so it was like, it's me and her.
Mm-hmm.
And, it did get to that point where
They were scared of her too.
they were so afraid of her, but not once. Well, my dad was 6 foot something and she was 4 something, and she would beat the crap out of my dad.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's like he would just stand there and just kind of like try to move her, and he never harmed her.
Wow.
Not once. I'm like, well, let me hit her.
Yeah,
Like
seriously. I'll
I
take
will. And
So do you feel like at a certain age your drugs became like, I have to numb because you don't want to deal with it.
right. And that's
Randy
it.
too.
Yes. And I hung out with his crowd of friends. I had my friends. The bar was acceptable. Go play pool. I mean, drugs are going around. Back then it was, barbiturates and Quaaludes and Valium. And then I'm mixing.
Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah, Jeffrey Dahmer time for sure.
Same
It was.
area, Milwaukee.
Literally
Yes.
Milwaukee.
Yes. And my girlfriend and I hitchhiked constantly. I had no money.
Wild.
I mean, I would panhandle. We'd go to Southgate and I'd be like, can I borrow a quarter? I need to call my mom. People would give me quarters all the time just so I could eat.
Yeah.
Because they never gave me money or food. Their way of food was get your ass up at 4:30 in the morning. She would kick me and say, you want breakfast? Get over to Jewel. And Jewel was the grocery store, which meant not go buy a loaf of bread. They brought the pastries and the bread to the back of the store.
Oh.
And so my job was to go over there at 4:30 in the morning when it was delivered and
Steal
steal it. And so that was our breakfast. You want to eat? Get your ass up.
Wow.
Go steal it for us.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Reminds me of Aladdin. Just like swinging in and grabbing the loaves of bread.
Yeah. So it was like, okay. And I mean, she was a constant. She would go in the store, stuff meat in her everywhere. Back then, it wasn't as common. Nowadays, you'd probably get caught more. But I mean, she'd be taking turkeys and, anything. She just was like a hypochondriac, just stealing constantly. And then you guys want to eat? Get to the store.
Wow.
Yep.
So it was like, okay, I want to eat, And so, but yeah, with all of that, just the drug use got more, going to the bar.
And you were like 15?
Well, 13, 14. By 15, I was pretty heavy into whatever anybody had, which was Quaaludes, which were downers. They don't really have those around now.
That's like Nevaeh's age.
Yes.
Yeah. That's
And
wild.
if you think about it, I think I shared this in the last podcast with you, but like at 15, you lived such a crazy life that Nevaeh would never understand. Or like a kid that age, like you're an adult. You're an adult at like 15. You probably felt like you're like the kids at school. They're like they don't know anything.
Yeah.
Right.
Your world, like your real world, was
My real world was surviving,
yeah.
and so
And most kids at 15 are not
No.
worried about that. They're
Yeah, which they
they're
shouldn't be.
Correct.
Like, you had to grow up so quick.
yeah.
so fast, and it was younger. It was really at like 10, 11,
which
to
is
where
Grayson's age. If you're
Yeah.
trying, can you at 11?
Yeah.
Trying-
When you said that's Nevaeh's age, I'm like, holy crap.
Trying weed for the first time.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I mean, really though, if you think of it as Grayson and Austin, like if Austin said, hey, I'm doing this, Grayson's like, I'm doing it too.
Yep.
Of course.
I'm trying wrestling. I'm trying wrestling too.
Yes.
That's
yes.
exactly the same thing. Oh, Randy gave me this. He's
Yeah.
doing it. I'm going to do it.
It's my big brother. He's
Yes.
Yeah. And obviously that made you feel calm and
Right.
happy.
Yep.
So why else would you not continue to do it?
Right.
Especially in such a crazy
Right.
family.
Yeah. And then, you're going to the same bars, people know you. It's just like,
I'm
wow.
thinking of the adults at this time. Like, yeah, here's your
Yes.
You know,
I
they're
know.
giving
Yes.
kids this, and I just like, wow. But their world obviously it was different.
Yeah.
It's just different. But
Yep. And granted, being in those bars, I mean, these are homes. Taverns in
Oh, yeah, you're
Milwaukee
right.
are like homes.
Yeah.
So like they live above and their bar is below.
yep, I forgot about
And
that.
so it's like, oh, these young kids come in and play pool,
Yep.
and then you're in there, and sooner or later they're giving you the alcohol,
Yep.
and so which leads up to
Yeah.
the one time where we were at the bar for a friend's birthday, and I was had just turned 16. And there was Valium, and I don't even know what was all going around. I'd just take whatever, and I'm drinking with it. And I ended up in a blackout. And I vaguely remember walking out of the bar, and I was going with some friends. I think we were going to another party, and it was a busy road from where the bar was. We walked across the street. The guy goes, "Oh, I'm going to go back and get some beer." Next thing I know, I'm in the hospital. And I had what they had explained was I must have wandered back into the road in a blackout, and a car hit me going 55.
Oof.
And I went through the windshield. I don't remember any of this, thank God. I was in a blackout. Went through the windshield, flew 80 feet in the air, and landed. And I didn't die, first of all.
Yeah.
Second of all, I
It's
didn't
miraculous.
have. Yeah, it was miraculous. And second, no brain damage. I ended up
Yeah.
with 2 broken legs.
yeah.
But I
And you were,
remember
what age was this?
I had just turned 16.
16. Okay.
And I remember being in the hospital, and there were all these people around my head, and I heard this loud noise. It was a vacuum. So they were vacuuming the glass out of my chest and my
gosh.
face. And I didn't know that. 'Cause I just saw these people and thought, I don't know what's going on. And I remember saying to the nurse, "Are my teeth are all there?"
Sounds like something Courtney would say too.
I'd be
The
like,
two of you and your teeth.
did I knock them out? Because
I'm
that's
like,
my biggest fear.
Yes,
My
I
legs.
did. Yep.
fine.
Well, who
Yep.
cares? And I remember the nurse saying, leaning over, she was so sweet. And she said, "Honey, your teeth are all there." She probably turned and said, "The rest of your body isn't."
Right.
But, "Honey, your teeth are all there."
Your legs are broken in
Teeth
half.
are there. Yes.
Your face is a wreck. Your legs, are shattered, but your teeth are there.
Yeah.
But I remember being in that hospital bed and thinking, God must have a plan.
Yeah.
That came to your brain.
That came to my brain.
Wow.
And I had no relationship with God. I wasn't going to church. I didn't know anything, but I thought I should be dead.
Yeah.
When the police officer came in and explained to me the police report that the man who hit me then proceeded, he was a drunk driver, hitting another, person.
Drunk person.
Yep. He went up the street, went into a bar there, and said, "Somebody threw a brick through my window." So the bartender looked at him. He had blood on him, and he thought, brick. So he goes out there, looks at the car, sees hair in the
Oh
windshield,
my gosh.
and called the cops. Was like, "That wasn't a brick, buddy," and kept him there.
Where were you? Were you on the road?
I was still on the road.
Oh my
It was a
gosh.
hit and run.
Oh my gosh.
It was a hit and run. So it ended up being a police officer's son. And so at some point down the road, they said they lost his breathalyzer
First of
and all
wow,
this.
I did
Wow.
not know this part of the story.
Yeah.
That pisses me off.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I remember, and I didn't know anything. I was just like,
You're like,
I
well-
want to live,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But hearing that, it was like, wow, miraculously, this breathalyzer of this man who hit me going 55 disappeared. Yeah. So, but it was a long journey. I remember being in the hospital, I want to say like 3 to 4 months
Wow.
with 2 broken legs. And then they had my face taped up, trying to allow like the glass to come out naturally. I still have glass that comes out to this day.
Yeah.
But I remember the nurse saying, we're going to take off your bandages and let's curl your hair. I'm like, I don't want to do any of it. I mean, you're just depressed at 16, right? Your face is smashed in. You don't know what it looks like.
Did you look at it?
It took a long time. She would work with me every day, like, come on, let's look at your face.
Yep.
And I'm like, I don't want to, you know, because I was scared. I thought my legs looked like Frankenstein.
Yep.
I thought my face is going to look like Frankenstein. And I mean, I still have scars on my face. You can't tell now, but my nose was really bad. And I was just like, I'm Frankenstein. And at 16, come on.
Yeah.
Right?
Nevaeh, after her brain surgeries, didn't want to look.
That was a couple of weeks or so.
It was
wasn't
and she wouldn't look in the mirror.
Yeah.
I think it was, it was the same. It was like you're just kind of scared.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is very understandable.
Yep.
Yeah. And so and the nurse, I remember she was so sweet. And I think her name was Debbie. But she was Debbie, all these Debbies.
Yeah.
And she would just work with me. But I thought,
when you were in there, did they realize at the time, or did you have any withdrawals or anything from drugs, or did they kind of just because you had broken legs, you had
pain meds and stuff?
Right.
It's like, all right, I'm still getting my fix.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't even recall that because I didn't take drugs to the point where there was like an addiction.
Got it.
It wasn't, even when I did go through drug treatment, there wasn't like withdrawals because I think I spaced it out with so many different things like marijuana and then barbiturates and then alcohol. But it wasn't like I'd wake up like I had to have that. Thank God.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Well, like your uncle Al had said, like, it's not a you problem. It's not, you don't have like an addictive personality. It's you trying to numb your family situation and what you were going through.
Right. It was surviving it.
Yeah.
And he keyed in on that to where that when I was in that bed, I remember, and I did talk to him and he was like, if you want me to help you, there's great places in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And there was just this fear of like leaving my family, even though they're so sick and dysfunctional, right? That's all I knew. And so it's like, okay, go to Minnesota. I mean, that was scary to me, but I knew at that point in that hospital bed, I need to leave. I mean, at 16, what kid does that?
Yeah.
Is like, I need to leave this situation or I'm going to die.
Yeah.
I will literally die. I never felt like I was going to commit suicide, but the depression and the heaviness and just keep on taking drugs, I'm going to OD. Yeah. But not on purpose.
Yep.
But that I could see that's where I was going. And it's like,
or you're going to be in jail because
in jail.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, for somebody to have that, I feel like that was a complete divine intervention moment. Like for somebody to be in the position you were in and like not having any background or knowledge of God, like this was a God thing. Like for you to think that, and then you for also to have the wherewithal to be like, I need to get out of this situation at 16 years old.
Yeah.
Was like two very divine.
Yeah.
So you're like,
moments.
Yes, I'm going to go. And then at 16, you were like, I'm going to Minnesota.
Well, from the hospital, I had to go back to my dad and stepmom, which I was like, how am I going to do this with two broken legs? It kind of reminded me of what's that? Misery.
Oh yeah.
Right where they're stuck in the house with the crazy person. She was that crazy. I was like, okay, God help me. And I knew I needed to get my strength up. And so I did go back, lived with them. She still did her shenanigans. And I was so focused, you guys. It was like God focused. Like he gave me the strength, and I would walk with two broken legs. They gave me half cast with walking boots. I would walk from the refrigerator to the stove, from the stove. I mean, I just kept walking and walking. Yep. I got my strength. And then all of a sudden, because they put rods down my legs and pins. And by the next time I went to the doctor, they're like, oh my gosh, we have to take those rods out. They're coming out of your legs. You are becoming so strong that your bones are rejecting them. Wow. And I'm like, I don't know what that means, but do whatever you got to do, right? Yep. So they took those out. I got stronger and stronger. And then I just kept thinking, when am I going to leave? How am I going to do this? I'm going to miss everybody. I don't think I can do this. And I went to one last party. Sure enough, was doing cocaine and I was blacking out again. I woke up. I called my uncle. I said, help me. I need to get out now.
Yeah.
And that was that turning point because I went back and forth and, you know, do I really want to? And then, yes. And finally it was like, okay, he said, I'm sending your mom to come pick you up. She drove me to Minnesota. I didn't know any of the details. She brought me to a 30-day treatment program. And then I remember being in the room and she's like, okay, do you want me to stay for a little bit or anything? And I'm like, no, I'm fine. Just go. You know, like I was so
Oh my gosh, that had to have been so hard for her.
I mean, yeah, I'm sure. Because it's
Dropping
like
off your 16-year-old in a different state.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm fine. Because I just was badass back then. I was like, I'd get in a fight with anybody. I mean, I just had bad, you know, I mean, my stepmom would look at somebody in a store and start a fight. Fist fighting with them in a store. She got out of a car one time. We're driving down the road. We're at a stoplight. The person on the side looks at her. She got out of her car, went over there, ripped her windshield wipers off, cracked her window, was like, come out here and fight me. I'm like, this was normal.
Yeah.
So of course that's kind of
how you were.
This was a Tuesday.
Like yeah.
So I was like, so then when my mom says, do you want me to stay? I'm like, no, I'm fine. Just go. So she leaves.
Probably cried all the way back to Wisconsin.
Right. She leaves, shuts the door. Here's me. Instantly, like, I'm really, what am I doing? I'm in a different state.
I'm alone now.
Now I'm really alone.
Yeah.
No family, no friends. What am I doing here? I was never so scared in my life as that point. Mm-hmm. It was like, now what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, if there's God, you better help. And, you know, that was the start of leaving a dysfunctional situation at 16.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, and thinking, my family doesn't care.
Yeah.
Where I'm at. I mean, I'd be out all hours of the night. And so who cares? Why go to treatment?
Yeah.
Right.
Right? Like, so that was the beginning of a lot of changes because I had great counselors and counselors that were like, it's the environment.
Yep.
You know, you use this stuff as Band-Aids.
What was that saying that you said that you went to that boys whatever?
Oh, Boys Town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It said there's no such thing as a bad boy.
Yeah. As you go in, because I was threatened, they had threatened to put me in Boys Town, which they also, you know, girls can go there too.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, please put me in Boys Town, please, you know, give me some positive people.
Right.
And so then a few years back, Dave and I had went, and we have some friends out there, and I said, I want to stop in Boys Town. I just want to look at it, you know. And as we pulled up, there was this big statue of Father Flanagan, because that's who started it, with boys on his shoulders. And the bottom of it said, there's no such thing as a bad, I think it said bad child, as a bad child. It's the environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is so true, because kids are not bad kids.
No.
I mean, it is, you got to look at the environment. You have to look at so many other things, because kids by nature, I mean,
They're innocent. Yeah.
They're innocent until, you know, they're not, because of so many different variables of how they're treated. But that just brought me to tears, because it's like, that's truth. It wasn't like I was a bad child. I was trying to survive in the midst of their chaos.
Yeah.
And so it's like, but then I got looked at as a bad child because I ran away.
Right.
Children don't run away.
Right.
Like Nevaeh and Grayson. I don't think you ever heard him say, I'm running away.
Right.
No.
Right?
No. No.
Like that's not normal vocabulary for children to run away or to leave. So
do you feel like what was there? It was the accident for you. So like everyone has just like this one moment. Do you feel like, because there's a lot of people that want to help, but if they're not ready, they're not gonna change. Like with drugs and being addicted. Do you feel like Uncle Randy ever had that just one moment of being like, I want to change?
I think he had a lot of moments. I don't know.
Or what made you be able to turn your life around, but not him?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because my uncle, or our uncle, would tell him the exact same thing. Like, if you need help, I'll help you. He would say the exact same things, but why it stuck with me differently, maybe I was, and I remember him saying this to me, now that you bring that up, he would always say, you were so much worse than I.
Oh.
Always. Now that you say that, it's like,
drugs?
Yes. But that wasn't true, because he was addicted to drugs.
Right.
But I think that was kind of like, even when I was in the 30-day program, then I went to a 6-month program, and it was a women's halfway house in Woodbury, which ended up being a year. I remember him coming out there, and he always joked and was like, yeah, you were always so much worse than me. I'd be like,
that.
He really did believe that. Like, but yeah, that's really interesting memory now as to like, why would you say that? Is that just to make you feel better?
I think he really felt that.
Yep.
And so he was like, well, I don't need help.
Right.
But our mom's brother, my uncle, he did die from a drug overdose when he was
44. Yeah.
And I remember, from my point of view, him coming a lot to help or just stay at our house, and you'd be like, Uncle Randy will be here. And it's like, he came multiple times to live with us, but it was like, you can't do drugs here.
Right.
I remember him shaking and trying to make a cigarette. He would he would roll it, and he would be shaking. And I'd always be like, why are you shaking?
And sweating.
Yes. And sweating.
Profusely sweating.
Yep. And you could tell
withdrawal.
just his body.
The withdrawal.
Yeah.
And like, okay, I stopped at 16. Okay. I mean, from 11 to 16, he was doing it from 13 all the way to 44. Like, he never really stopped. He may have stopped for a couple weeks, because he did go to a few treatment programs. And then we did have him live with us a couple of times, just to help him, to be like, you can do this, you can do this. Yep. And I felt like I was the one like putting him on my back, like, come on, we can do this. I'll help you. But I realized he has to help himself.
Yep.
And I mean, I felt so bad, because I mean, I wanted him, to, grow and change. And he did, but not as much as I wanted. Like, this was like life and death for me. I knew I would die in Milwaukee if I didn't get away, which is true. For anybody out there, you do have to leave your environment. Yeah. Whatever the abuse is, if it's, I mean, obviously my stepmom there were so many different dynamics to her, but I mean, as a kid, you can't just leave your home. Right. What do you do? What do you do? It's like, hopefully there's somebody, I mean, a teacher, a neighbor, an uncle, an aunt, to where, I mean, we should all be aware and look, being aware of our neighbors even. Because it's like you said, the statistics, they're there.
And I think one of the things too that we want to bring more awareness to the podcast and everything is for that. Right. Like I think I'm pretty aware, just because you're very aware, and I grew up with you, like, be aware, you never know, like, friends, family, whatever, just keep your eyes open. And it doesn't even have to always be a bruise.
Right.
It's the way they flinch or anything. And so as long, like, do you feel like, is there something that us as listeners could say that would make somebody feel safe to tell us something? Because I think the biggest thing that people are afraid of is like sharing and then that person who is abusing you finding out that you shared,
Right.
and then they make it worse.
Right.
So how do we as listeners or just like people in general have a safe space without making sure the abuser person doesn't know or, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think nowadays it's so different than back in the 70s, because back then it was like everybody turned their heads.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted to I don't want to get involved.
Yeah.
Right.
They didn't want to get involved. And there's still that stigma today because everybody's afraid,
Yeah.
right? Everybody's afraid of retaliation.
Yep.
And, but then if you're not, like maybe talking with somebody that can report,
Yeah.
Right.
or if they go to a school counselor, they're mandated reporters.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that as a kid. Like, man, is somebody going to help me? That's
Right.
what I always thought. Like, is somebody hearing this stuff? Will somebody help me? And obviously my uncle was that one person, but what if I didn't have my uncle?
I know.
Right.
I mean, all those people, all those places I lived, I know for a fact that people heard what went on.
Yeah.
Apartment buildings are those.
Walls aren't very thick.
Yeah, we lived in duplexes.
Yeah.
We lived in a lot of places. I'm like, and it could have been reported.
Very true.
I
A lot
just
of things
didn't know.
go reported
Right.
without
Yep.
being double checked on. But so basically just saying, I'll help you. You just tell me, I will get you out of there. I don't
Yep.
care.
Yep.
That no matter what.
Yeah. And especially
Checking
like in my environment, had there been somebody like a neighbor, like I'm walking to the school bus every day, if they were on their way out, or do you need help?
Yeah.
Is there something,
Would
I mean,
you have
it's
said no?
probably,
If a random person said that?
probably.
Yeah.
Probably. And maybe not. I mean, depending on the day and depending if I was just beat that morning or
Right.
not,
Yeah.
I might. And I know my girlfriend's mom was also afraid, but she had seen the bruises on my back one time and had said that she was going to deal with it, or she was going to report. And I remember saying, don't.
Yeah.
Why? Because that's how it goes with
You're gonna
abuse.
make my situation worse.
You're going to
Yeah.
make it worse. Who knows what's going to happen. Don't rock the boat. I mean, when you're in an abusive situation, you just want it to get better, but you don't know how.
Right.
Yeah. You're just so fear-based that you
Right.
think that, okay, I'm going to tell something and then it's just going to be worse. And so I'm just not going to say anything.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why people just take it.
Right.
But
Yep.
I mean, I think probably somebody just being consistent with you and saying like, no matter what, I'm still here.
Yeah.
Even if it took 5 years for you to actually go, hey,
Right.
fine, I need your help now.
Yeah.
Yep.
And what I can speak into is family members. So, okay, all of my family was dysfunctional, except there was that one uncle. So us as uncles and aunts might be able to see it more. Maybe if you're seeing something in your sister's kids or your brother's kids and you start questioning, or you're seeing bruises, or you're seeing the pain, you're seeing them harm those kids in front of you.
Right.
That's where, like, my uncle did not get involved to be like, you're a terrible parent. He was speaking to me.
Yeah.
He was, and I always was like, well, I mean, that's pretty young for an adult to be calling from New York, calling me, once or twice a week.
Yeah.
How are you? I just wanted to say hi and let you know I love you. That was it,
Yep.
right? He built trust
Yeah. Inconsistency.
and consistency.
Yep.
So I think
Great,
that's,
man.
Seriously.
Like, think about that. Like, just from New York.
yeah.
Well, think about just that consistency and that follow through for how many years because of him,
Yeah.
you are who you are because of him.
But you didn't have a good
Courtney's an
dad. You
actual
didn't have a
person.
good-
Like, you know what I mean? Like just him being obedient to what was going on in his spirit, knowing that something was happening. He was obedient to it. And because of that led to you turning your life around and having amazing children and grandchildren, like all because of him being obedient.
And
Right.
him just like you not having a dad that stood up for you or brother.
Yeah.
You had him.
Yep.
As much as it like he's far, he still was like that
Rock.
one person that
Yeah.
you could count on.
Yeah.
Which I feel like everyone needs.
Right. It just takes one person
It
just
does.
to be consistent. And sometimes it's not reporting. He could have reported
Yeah,
that,
he
Right.
absolutely
but I
could.
don't know. I don't know that he didn't.
Yeah.
You know, he may have, but he was, like I said, consistent with me, loving me. He locked in on me and got my attention to where I was building trust. Like you said, my dad didn't, my brother didn't, but this one man did. And it was like, whoa. And I've said to him throughout the years, you know, like, thank you. I mean, after going through my healing process, thank you so much for being there. He's like, oh, you did all the hard work.
Yeah.
I was just there. He's like, nope, you did the hard work. And I'm like, yes, that is true.
Yeah.
That is really true. But had you not reached out to me,
Who knows?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be here. I
Right.
mean, seriously,
Yeah.
would not be here.
Yep.
And, you know,
So how do you feel like as we wrap this up, like your view, and maybe we can get into this at a different time too, but like your view of, because I have met a lot of people that told me that your story was very like hit them hard. And
Yeah.
the one thing that they felt as women when they were going through this as a kid is that they were afraid of being moms because they felt like they were going to repeat. Is there a specific thing that you just could just be like, nope, I'm not letting this trauma become my kid's trauma? How do you, or was it therapy? Is there a specific mindset?
yeah, I think that there's a lot that goes into that one because
Yeah.
I had to break the vows that I made. First of all, I hate men. I will never get
Yeah.
married. I will never have children. Those were the vows that I had. And then once I started therapy and my counselors were like, that was your family's, that was your mom and dad's trauma. It doesn't have to be your future.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, they're like, you have a clean board. You have a clean whiteboard here. You can make your life as amazing as you want. You don't have to, repeat their abuses and their things. And I remember thinking of that at 16.
Yeah.
Again, think of Nevaeh having to process that in her head. And I remember thinking, yeah. But I remember once Dave and I were dating and then he's like, yeah, and I want kids. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, I don't want kids.
He said he wanted 6.
He did. He said he wanted 6. I said, not with me. Nope, not with me. I will not. I don't even want kids. I was petrified. And he's like, why? I said, I know I'm going to harm them. That's all that I just don't know anything different in my brain. And he's like, oh my gosh. I mean, he laughed. He's like, you would not. And I'm like,
Yeah. And
I remember just praying and thinking, well, I do want kids, but okay, God help me so that I don't put them in a closet somewhere because of what happened to me.
Yeah.
And it obviously didn't happen, but it took me processing and having prayer and, healing and therapy to go, that happened to you, but you can break that chain. You don't have to continue that on.
Yeah.
Even though that's what happened to me, I don't have to pass that on. It is a choice.
Yeah.
And that you hear that all the time, like with alcohol or abusers or this or that, that's all you know. So then that's what you do. And it's like, no, I'm not going to do that. And so it is a process. You have to have support around you, first of all, having therapy and, and just God saying, that's not who you are.
Right.
And this is who you are in me. And it's like, oh, and Dave was so supportive too, Dad.
Yeah.
To where it's like,
oh yeah, you don't have to be like that.
Yeah.
It's not that easy.
No, it's not.
But
No.
It's a process.
Yeah, I'm sure there was plenty times us growing up that you went through different things of like, oh my gosh, I could do this. I could do that. I mean, constantly, every day you have choices of how you want to be, how you want to view the world, how you want to be and show up.
Right.
But sometimes the world tells you, what they think you should be.
Right.
And you
Based
also
off
have
your
the choice.
circumstances.
Yeah, you have the
Right.
choice every day to be who you want to be.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you didn't want to be that.
Right.
Even though that's freaking hard.
Yeah.
Because it's ingrained in you.
Right. It's ingrained. And I remember thinking, I want to be a fun mom. I want to be a mom that is interactive with my kids. And I was so thankful. I was like, God, I really want girls. It was like, I want girls. And it was like, I felt like, and he gave me 2 girls,
Yeah.
but I thought I just wanted to have, I feel like raising you girls, it was healing to me.
Oh, yeah.
It was like watching you grow. It was like, yeah, that's what I wanted.
Yeah.
And it was like, but I'm getting it.
Yep.
I got it. Watching you and watching, Dad be a good, watching Dad be a good dad to you and me being a good mom to you and loving you and going, yeah, God can redeem a broken life, a shattered life, a trauma-filled, chaotic life, and I don't have to carry on that dysfunction. It's not saying that we're perfect,
Right.
because we all have
No.
stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't have to carry on that chaos.
Right.
And that was the choice. And it was like, I want to can, I want to cook, I want to, all the things I never had. It wasn't money stuff. It was, I want to be with you and bake cookies. And you were the baker. And, Danielle did stuff too, but you were like, let's make cookies, Mom. Let's make it was
Cookies.
healing.
Is anybody surprised? That was me.
She would be like, Mom, let's make cookies. And so that healed me.
Well, you were such a good mom that everyone wanted you to be the mom.
Yeah, seriously. Can she adopt me?
And what better, if everyone wanted you as a mom, that means you did exactly what you wanted to do,
Yeah.
which was be a good mom, be there. The kids learn so much from you. I don't cook, but you cook and you are a great cook. But I think it's such a cool story to hear over and over. And her story is not done.
Right.
We have a lot more. That's just basically her childhood and becoming a mom. And we're going to have my dad on here too. And we're going to go through my dad's cancer because you could have had 6 kids.
Right.
But, dad had cancer and I was the last. But
Yes. You were the miracle one.
Wasn't in the cards. Wasn't that part of the story?
Yeah.
But thank you for sharing your story.
Thanks for having me.
And inspiring the world with your story. And I know a lot of people relate to it. And can't wait to have you back on.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
I know.
Thanks for being, I can say coming from coming from a son-in-law now, obviously I'm incredibly grateful for Courtney, and she's had such an impact on my life. And then hearing your story and you share your story, and thank you for the hard work that you put in. It's not just, like you said, it's not just a choice. I'm going to change it and it just happens. You put in extremely hard work to break those generational curses or those generational things that you could have easily just kept going with and done that to your own family. You made those choices. You found the right man that was going to show you what a man's supposed to be.
Yeah.
This is how a man's supposed to take care of me and my girls. And so you made really good choices, obviously, that led to just a beautiful life and beautiful family that you've created. And I'm thrilled to be a part of.
Yeah. We love having you. And I remember, Austin saying one time, we were in the car and talking, and I don't even know how we got on the subject. It was something like, I drive to the right side, and he's like, why do you always drive to the right side? And, with like 2 ways. I said, well, I was in a car accident, and just gave him a real brief thing. And he's like, you were in a car accident? He was like maybe 10 or 11. And I said, yeah, and kind of told him a little bit of the story, just tiny. And he's like, so are you saying, like, if you didn't move here from Milwaukee, I wouldn't be here? And I was like, I didn't say that, but I did say that, didn't I? Kind of. I was like, yeah, kind of. If I didn't move here from Milwaukee, Courtney wouldn't be here. And then, yes, you wouldn't be here. I mean, it was just like touching to me that he took that so deep, which...
He is a very intuitive, sensitive kid. And I remember when you and Dad brought him to Milwaukee, and he was like, you lived here? And then he's like, you ate here? Yeah. And he's like locking the door, like, I'm scared, like terrified. But he is a very he's very
intuitive, very sensitive, and he went deep right away.
He understands the connections.
Which is a compliment to you two as parents, raising him as well. He's just got that sense. He just went deep right away, and I was like,
listen, if you would have told me that, you growing up, like, me and Danielle obviously knew the stories, but like, you don't know or understand until you have your own kids.
Yes, true.
And then you feel like that, like, you feel how you feel towards your kids, and you're like, how could anyone ever treat
their
kids out?
Anybody, any child that way? And then you think about it, and it's just so it's interesting for him at such a young age to like get that. I'd be like, okay, but I wouldn't think that deeply about it. Oops, I'm sorry, until you have your own kids, and it's a full circle moment. So
and those were all my full circle moments. Was raising you girls and thinking, how could at 7, 8, 9, I just couldn't. It was just like
no.
So yes, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on.
Yes.
And we will have you and Dad on soon. You're always fun to be on.
Yeah.
You're always fun to be on.
That was fun. Thanks for having me.
Story.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for listening. And we will have like everything in the description. If you guys want to follow my mom on Instagram, I will put it on in the description, as well as our Instagram as well, which is just the Cort Report.
Yes.
So
awesome.
Yeah. Anyways, I think that's it.
That's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
See you. Bye.
Bye.